I went into the meditation. And then during the meditation, I had this very vivid kind of, almost like being in a movie, watching a movie. I started, and a sort of black, it seemed to be a black and white screen. And then in the far distance, there was this little light. And the more I kind of tried to see what was going on, the more I was absorbed into it. And I found that I felt I was just sitting in blackness. Felt like the desert. Okay. The word that came to mind was the desert. But then in the distance, with this little speck of light, and it was getting closer and closer. And the closer it got, that I could make out more of its features. And then I could see that it was wearing, and if anything, I'm from a Muslim background, not Christian at all. Right? So as it got closer, I noticed that it had sort of robes, the traditional white robed figure that you would expect to see in, say, biblical times. And then you could see that the guy had long hair, and that it looked remarkably like that famous biblical character.
Yeah.
He comes up much closer to me, and he doesn't stop moving. He comes up right close to me, and then he kneels down, and then he offers me his hand like that. And then I just heard, it wasn't words, but just see what's in my hand, take this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he opened his hand, and there was this looked like golden sort of dust.
Yeah.
And then I sort of mentally, thank you very much. And then he just stood up and just walked slowly again, very slowly back to a tiny little dot. And then I sort of came out of that, and I was really excited. I thought, fucking hell, what was that about? I didn't know what it meant or anything. And I went rushing down to tell my then wife, very excitedly, what had just happened. And I'm not sure she was totally with me on it, and I haven't really mentioned it to many other people since then.
There is a meaning behind it. Obviously, did you journal about?
Well, I've thought about it a lot, and I have mentioned it. Some people have said maybe it was this, maybe it's that. I found that religious people will immediately want to put their religious figure on there. So my sister was very interested to know, because she's Muslim. She was very interested to know if he looked like he was wearing certain Muslim clothes, and she was very disappointed when I said no, he looked more like Jesus.
There's definitely a meaning behind that, and obviously it's something. I think it's your higher self that's sending a message to you, to look at, maybe journal and trying to figure out what that was.
Within 4 months of that, I found myself in the middle of a divorce after I'd been with my wife for 10, 12 years. Unexpectedly found out she was having an affair with my best mate, to make it even worse.
Right.
And a long time I thought, that's hardly fucking, the destiny I wanted to manifest. But then I started thinking, well, maybe that was supposed to happen. And, and since then, I must admit, I've been a lot more kind of focused on creative music and writing and performing and stuff like that than I was before. So maybe it could be said that it was, but I just thought it was curious that that coincided very quickly after that.
Might have been like a gateway to a new life.
Around that time, before I discovered that I was going to get divorced because my friend was having an affair, I kept having this recurring dream, right? And in this dream, I would get up out of my bed because I thought I'd hear a noise, and there'd be a door that I'd never noticed before in my house, and I'd open it, and I'd start walking down, and I couldn't turn the light on because the light wouldn't turn on, so I had to walk down in darkness. And as I got further down the steps, like a dank basement, concrete steps, something sounded like something dripping, and then I heard this noise, right, of something. It sounded like, if you imagine a washing up glove being pulled to its limit and then snapped back.
Snap.
Right, I kept hearing this noise, and I think, what the fuck is that noise? And as I got to the end, I got this feeling of don't look round the corner, but I had to look round the corner to see what was making the noise. And I looked around the corner, but all I saw was a witch. It looked like a typical stereotype witch sitting in a rocking chair, and she was sitting there with these rubber gloves in her hands, rocking back and forth, going. And she pretended. I knew that she could see me in the dream. I knew that she could see me, but she wasn't going to look at me until she wanted to. She wanted me to know that she knew I was looking at her. And then she turned to look at me, but I couldn't bear it. And I rushed back up the stairs, and I woke up in this fucking complete sweat. Every time I'd wake up in this literally shaking. What the fuck? And that was around that time, before I had that horrible surprise about the affair. Do you think that? How would you place that?
Oh Christ, I don't. I mean, the most important thing with dreams is to journal, like literally. But you've got to, as soon as it happens, write everything down, and then usually what my wife does, she journals all her dreams, and then there's always a connection to that dream. There's a message usually in our dreams that our higher self sends to us within the dream for us to kind of get present to and excel as a human being, our soul, like our life purpose on this earth. And dreams, it's like a real, it's like another dimension. It's like, and it's like something's happened in another dimension realm, and it's life. It's. I mean, I have really, really vivid dreams now, and there's usually I don't journal as much as I should do. I should journal. My wife does it, and she'll sit down after a dream and go, "Oh, that's because of that and that," and she gets it. And so dreaming is really important.
If you don't write a dream down instantly, it just evaporates like mist.
Yes. Not all the time though. Because there's different. Like, I'll send you. There's a guy called Sakwib, and he's an amazing man. He's on Insight Timer. And there's a really good course he does on shadow work, inner child work. And there's also one that he does on accessing your third eye, which a lot of the Egyptians did. And there's 2 courses. I'll send you the links to them.
Have you ever tried DMT?
No.
They say you've got to have like 3 steady hits on the pipe. It's got to be 3 like proper hits.
Yeah.
Anything less, it's not going to do the proper thing. And I was a bit scared because when you disassociate by doing these 3 hits, you then often would find what I heard, you find yourself standing beside yourself, looking down, and that scared me a little bit because it feels like death, basically.
Yeah.
But I wanted to try it, and so I went, but I chickened out and I didn't do proper big hits. I just did 3 fairly mediocre ones, but that turned into a weird enough thing. I felt like I was in an Egyptian tomb with like all these colourful sarcophagus, whatever they're called, around, and lots of beautiful patterns. And when I came excitedly out in what I thought was hours later, it was like 10 minutes. You've been in there 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I just couldn't believe I'd been in there 10 minutes because time goes very weird suddenly. I
think the one thing like my wife's taught me is with hallucinogenics, mushrooms, and like ayahuasca, I think you've got to, before you go into it, it's got to be a safe space. That's the most important thing. Yeah. And also, you can't go in there full of fear. Yeah, you got to kind of go in with it in a really good place. And I think I will dabble with it. However, I've got a bit more inner child work to do, shadow work, which is trauma that I've picked up from.
I'm not sure that I'm not sure if I feel the need to have any more psychedelic experiences. I think
so. If you do, my wife told me that if you do ayahuasca, it can clear the first 7 years of your programming. So basically, all the shit that you picked up as a child, all that stuff. That Sakweb, he says there's a really good analogy that he says that as a child, we're like, when you come into the world, you're a 13-bedroom house, and then by the time you're 7, you live in a 1-bedroom house where your mum says you're not good enough. You said, oh, you're ugly. At school, they say you can't do this. So basically, you're restricted, and that's what we become. But with ayahuasca, I've heard my wife said that it opens up those, it basically eradicates all those early years. So you just become that really creative, free soul.
Has she done it?
No, she's going to do it.
Are you afraid?
I've got a lot more work to do on myself.
I know people, and it seems a popular thing now for like sort of middle class, sort of woo-woo people who think they can just go there and everything's going to be sorted. Their addiction problems all going to be gone.
Exactly.
And it doesn't quite work out that way. And so it sounds a bit of it sounds a miracle cure to anybody hearing. I can't blame anyone for hearing about a transformative experience like that without thinking, oh, well, I want to do that as well. But as you say, I think there's a lot of preconditions that need
exactly. You got to clear out all that shit, and you know, I don't think therapy is great. I think, you know, shadow healing work and doing self work on yourself is the way forward. Obviously, if you've got a spiritual, like my wife's a healer and she's an incredible person, and she's, you know, I'm blessed to have her around me.
How long? You're obviously very in love with your wife. How long have you been married for?
8-9 years. But I've known her all my life,
Right.
and you know, before that, so yeah, just blessed to have her around me, because it's kind of weird though. It's like I'm into the Sex Pistols, and then, you know, I've got this wife that's a healer.
Most people would find that a contradiction.
Yeah.
It's a good one though. It's a really good one.
No, exactly. And
were you interested in that side of life before you met?
So I did. I remember when I was young and I did mushrooms, and I had 2 really bad trips. However, I was a fucked up kid. I came from a traumatic background. I floated out to sea and got rescued. I've confronted 2 burglars as a child, where they tried to rob our house as a kid. And then I've had people come at me with a machete, with a knife. So I was,
What happened at sea?
I was in America, and my mum and dad were on a beach on the East Coast. And I went on a lilo and fell asleep on it. And then I woke up and I just it was the most traumatic experience. Anyway, I slipped off the lilo, but I weren't meant to die. It weren't my time. And I was just like, it was something that was keeping me a bit like dynamo. I was just hanging on to this lilo. But what saved me was the lilo, where it went up in the air and I was hanging onto it in the water. Right. The ocean, it was the ocean. The lilo flicked the sunlight, and then there was a swimmer that was halfway out that went back, and I got rescued.
I nearly drowned once when I'd gone camping, and I got up really early one morning because I found this baby seagull on the road the day before, and it slept with me in the tent. And I thought in the morning I would take it to swim around in a rock pool that had a waterfall coming into it, and somewhere in Lancashire. But it was really deep. I had no idea how deep that pool was. It was like at least 100 foot, I would say. It probably wasn't, but it seemed to be. And anyway, so this seagull had gone on the pool, then it got on a ledge. It was all wet, too wet, and it got on a ledge on the other side. And I thought, and it couldn't come back. And so I thought, I've got to save it. And so I started walking around. I didn't want to go into a big pool. So I started edging around this sort of rock face so I could grab seagull and then edge back again. But then I slipped and fell in. And because it wasn't the summer, it was like fucking freezing cold. So I was wearing like 2 jumpers, a big heavy coat, boots, 2 pairs of socks, all that. And so I just went boom, like that, just straight down. And then I thought, this is it.
Yeah.
It's the end of it. And then I thought, I can't even get my fucking coat off. I was struggling to get it off. And so I thought, I'm just going to die. And then the next thing I found, this is really true. The next thing, I don't remember anything else, but I was suddenly at the edge of the thing, crawling back up again. And
that's mad. Your time weren't meant to come.
Scary feeling though. Very scary feeling.
It is so scary. Yeah. It's so scary. Anyone that hasn't drowned or nearly drowned, it is literally, I can remember the day now, like vividly, like it was just horrific.
Yeah. Well, glad you didn't die.
Exactly. We wouldn't be here today.
So before we go, it's been a great chat, by the way.
Thank you very much for having me. I really thank you so much.
This is more like a chat with an old mate. It's almost we've never met before.
No, I know.
But so with the memorabilia and stuff, do you do all right out of that? Do you?
Yeah. So the good thing with the memorabilia, obviously everything has ups and downs, and it's kind of the market in general has declined a little bit at the moment. However, it's picking up again. You just look at the prices. It's been a great thing to invest and deal in, and it's always, you get something nice like an early punk poster or a rare, you know, a flyer, poster, a shirt that's original. It's got to be original. And it's really rare. And if it's got that provenance, if it comes from a band, especially like a set list, you know, an early set list from like, I mean, I know people that have got original set lists of the Pistols. I know, you know, who's got.
How much does an original Pistol set list go for?
If you got one from 76, 75, you could probably get about 25, 30 grand for it, as long as it's got good provenance. I've been working on one for a while. I know someone who's got one. You'd be surprised what they did keep and what they didn't keep.
I wish I picked up a fucking set list back in the day.
I know.
I'll tell you a funny Steve Jones story that he'll remember this, and this is probably the last sort of communication I had with him. After, I mean, the first one being going to the toss pot for something to eat.
Yeah.
And then in 2005-ish, we were flogged Steve Jones's Les Paul, right? Eater flogged it back in the day for like 100 quid or something, and then I wanted to sell it in about 2005. So I contacted Christie's, and they said they had a rock and roll auction coming up, and so they wanted to put it. They were very happy to put it in their catalogue for. I think the price was something like 10 grand.
Yeah.
And then they contacted me and said, "Oh, we've just had communication from a Mr. Jones who has come to his attention, but he said, I think he wanted to check provenance, right? And he said, check. And I didn't know this bit of it, right, about this provenance, but he said that if you take the round bit off, whatever you call it, he said there's Wally Nightingale, 70 something scratched in there, and they did that, and it was that. But it's funny the way the guy from Christie's said it seems a very strange man, this Mr. Jones. He said that he doesn't write emails in the normal way. And I was like,
so Steve's actual guitar, the main guitar that he had, actually just sold to a French guy for just $390,000. That is the one. The lady from Hawaii owned it. It was the one, I think. His famous Les Paul is in France, because the guy that bought it in France, he's when any band goes out there like Youngblood or Green Day, he gets the bands to play it.
I'm starting to think I was diddled.
Yeah, fucking hell. I mean, listen, things back in those days did, but now prices have escalated somewhat incredibly.
Fuck.
The actual one the French guy bought, his original one without the ladies, because the ladies are not on it. But Steve had a few. There's another one that is a Flying V. That's the one that I want to try and trace. What happened to the Flying V that he had? He played with a Flying V in Wales. We don't know where it is.
What, Nick?
I mean, it got nicked, sold, whatever. There's a story behind them all. You know,
that's a bit of irony for Steve, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lady approached me with a shirt that Cookie gave to when they played in Holland. He had a Union Jack shirt, and she approached me with that. And Cookie's playing a drum kit, a brown drum kit. When I showed Cookie, he goes, he doesn't remember where the kit came from. I reckon they must have hid it over there on the day. There must have been a problem with his kit. I mean, I know most of the instruments that Pistols had, their driving licenses, their passports, their drum kits, the guitars, I know pretty much where they all are. I've got a record of them. You know, there's a lot of the clothes went to Japan. A lot of the instruments are in Australia. And, you know, Steve's main guitar's now in France.
The Japanese love all that.
Yeah, they love it, especially the clothing. They're really hot on the Vivian Westwood.
Have you ever... Someone else who really loves all that is Henry Rollins. Have you ever...
Yeah, I deal with Henry. He's a really cool guy. Henry's so into like the punk thing. And Henry's bought shitloads of stuff from me. He's a really good client of mine. So anyway, on that note, it's been really great talking. And thank you so much. Really appreciate it. There's a lot of things there that I didn't expect to come up. No,
So,
me neither. And I'll send you a couple of really cool
yeah, do.
links. You'll love the Sackwib stuff's amazing.
Yeah,
You'll really like, if you like meditating, he's the guy.
for sure. Do that.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you very much, and thanks for
Cheers,
doing that.
Andy.
We'll
Pleasure.
speak soon. Have a good evening, and maybe I'll catch up with you sometime soon. Well,
Definitely.
are you going to any? Is there anything coming up that you're going to be at that's worth coming along to?
I think I'm going to see the. I'm going to do all the Pistols UK shows. I'm doing all those, and I think I'll do the.
Right.
I think I'll do the Damned at the Forever Festival. I think that I like the Damned. I love the Damned, so I'll go see them.
Yeah. Well, how friendly are you with the Pistols for guest lists?
Well,
legends.
Yeah, we'll talk about it offline.
Cool. Anyway, it's been really
right.
good.
Nice one.
Nice one.
Thank you. Cheers.